What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing well. Today I'm on your favorite subreddit of all time. At least it has been over the last 6 years I've been making Reddit content. That is, of course, r/EntitledParents. Well, it's actually EntitledPeople today, but it's much of a muchness. And these two stories are just so good. In the first one, this person's entitled sister tries to force her way onto an archaeology trip to Egypt, despite knowing nothing about archaeology, not working, and not being willing to pay for her flight, accommodation, or anything. Now, arguably, the entitled person in our second story is even worse than the entitled person in the first, though, as she tries to make a living breeding pugs, but does it in the most disgusting possible way. Without further ado, make sure you are subscribed to the channel if you are new. Drop a like on this if you're going to enjoy these two stories. Let's get into the first one. Our friend's entitled sister tried to force her way onto our trip to Egypt. This story happened quite a few years ago with me and my friends. But after reading quite a few stories on this subreddit, I feel that now is a good time as any to share this post. On November 2019, me and a couple of my friends, Haley, Rose, and Rachel, were given an opportunity to travel to the Valley of the Kings in Egypt. Note that we are archaeology graduates. While our families and friends were excited and proud of us for being able to go on this trip, Rachel's family did not feel the same way. Rachel's younger sister, Lisa, was the golden child of her family. Anything she wanted, her parents gave to her. While Rachel had to take out a student loan to pay for college, Lisa's parents paid for her tuition, only for Lisa to drop out 2 years in. Instead, Lisa chose to try and build a career being a model and influencer on Instagram. When Rachel mentioned that she was going to Egypt with us, that our plane tickets and accommodation had been already taken care of for archaeological fieldwork, Lisa got jealous, as she felt that the trip and taking photos of herself in Egypt for Instagram would help launch her modeling career. That said, their parents demanded that Rachel give her tickets to Lisa, as they felt Lisa was more deserving of them. To which Rachel obviously said no. It was already paid for by the foundation specifically for her and our group, who were trained to do this kind of work. According to Rachel, she's had back and forth arguments with her family leading up to the trip. She actually eventually just left home and moved in with her boyfriend, now husband, into his apartment. I held on to our plane tickets as we were all to meet up at my dad's place in the morning before we head off to the airport. At the time, I still lived with my dad. That said, as me, Rachel, Haley, and Rose were at my place, just hanging out and getting ready, Lisa pulled up with her mum and came knocking on my door. Apparently, they were demanding one more time that Rachel give her ticket to Lisa. Lisa even had a couple of bags with her as well. Before I continue, I'll just give you a better understanding of Lisa and Rachel's family and why they may behave or think this way. Rachel is the only one in her family who has actually finished college. Rachel pretty much took care of herself for much of her childhood, as her parents were too fixated on Lisa. Their parents moved to Los Angeles from Florida to try and become actors, but failed. They moved up here for some reason, and now their dad works as a truck driver, and their mum, I think, works at a grocery store. Rachel's family treated formal education and academia in general as a joke, and they didn't really support the idea of anyone going to college until Lisa decided she wanted to try going herself, as previously mentioned. Haley interjected, interrupting Lisa and her mum and pointing out again that this was not a vacation, this was an archaeological trip, and we were going there to do actual work. Haley went on to point out that it's Rachel's name on the plane ticket and on our accommodation in Luxor, so she asked Lisa and her mum questions like, how do you think Lisa is going to actually get on the plane? Who will Lisa be travelling with in Egypt? And where will she be staying there? Apparently, Lisa, despite not being friends with us at all, and her mum, expected the rest of us, me, Haley, and Rose, to just somehow convince customs to let her through and get on the flight, as well as expecting us to look after her and accompany her. I should also note that apart from Rachel, nobody in her family has ever travelled on a plane before. Lisa and their mum have never been overseas, and the only international travelling their dad ever did was driving trucks to and from Mexico. That said, I'm guessing this is why they don't seem to know how plane tickets or customs work, but that's just my assumption. Well, that is a pretty fair assumption, although on the other hand, you could just say that they seem pretty dumb anyway, and may genuinely think that the name on your plane ticket doesn't matter and you can just get a ticket and use it, whoever you are. I then pointed out to Lisa that if she really wants to go to Egypt, she could just buy her own tickets and book her own accommodation. However, Lisa said she didn't want to do any of that and she wanted Rachel's place on our trip, as she wanted all the expenses to be paid for and for us to accompany her, as she didn't want to travel by herself. Lisa and her mum eventually left after seeing that trying to argue and force her way onto our trip was not getting them anywhere, with the four of us, me, Hayley, Rachel and Rose, thankfully flying off to Egypt. After the dig at the Valley of the Kings, we did get to go and do touristy stuff, such as touring Cairo and seeing the pyramids of Giza. As for Lisa, while she still posts a lot on Instagram, she seems to have given up on a modelling and or influencer career. She's now just working in a warehouse. After the pandemic, she did get to go on vacation to Cancun though, but that is about it. Okay, and there we go. That is it for the first story of today's episode. And the one thing I will say is that I am at least happy that Lisa didn't manage to make it to Egypt and didn't manage to climb up the pyramids of Giza. In my mind, and I'm not sure why, actually I know why, it's because over the past few days I've seen at least like 2 or 3 videos of tourists scaling the pyramids. I thought Lisa might also do this. So at least she hasn't done that and defaced, some of the most important landmarks there are in the world, or at least ruined them a little bit. But yeah, the audacity of both Lisa, but also just her mum, genuinely insane, is all I can say. Let's move on to the second story. My entitled sister thought she could make a living breeding pugs, and she let her kids live in the filth because of her dog hoarding. So to start this one off, OP has left an edit right at the top saying this: "I'm already getting hate for this post, and believe me, I don't blame anyone for it. I was spineless back then. I wanted to call CPS or something, but anytime I even so much as mused about it, the family laid into me. So I focused more on helping to take care of the dogs and kids. But my sister's increasing toxicity only made it worse. And by the time I did take action, it was after my sister was finally evicted. I'm not asking anyone to see me as a hero here. I was a coward. But what I'm posting is 100% the truth." Okay, so there we go. Now let's get into the post. My sister for years believed she could make a living breeding pugs. She used to have a breeding pair she named after sibling characters, ironically. Well, that's a bit weird. The first time the female got pregnant, I had to help with the birth. And that pug had like 10 puppies. It was months of dealing with a stinky puppy pen, and my nephews and I having to take care of them while my sister wasn't home. She managed to find homes for all but one of the puppies, and the final one she refused to sell because he was too cute. I knew it. I knew from the start that she'd want to keep one of the puppies for herself. She denied it, but then she did. Just to try and make it look like she wasn't keeping the puppy because she didn't want to sell him, she claimed she was giving him to her sons and he'd be their dog. That was complete and utter BS, and we all knew it. That third pug was a menace, and it only made all 3 pugs one terrible group of troublemakers. They urinated on the floor so much, they rusted out the vents. And my nephews didn't really take care of the third pug as my sister claimed they were supposed to, as their dog. So she threatened she'd give away the third pug many times, but didn't, and would cry if called out on it because he's too cute. After like 2 years of that, it finally was too much for her and she gave the third pug away. She couldn't sell him like the prior puppies because he was fully grown and neutered. Somehow, the mother pug didn't have another pregnancy that took until my sister was evicted from the family property. We were kind of thankful for that. I ended up taking care of these pugs as much as my nephews while my sister wasn't home. The first pug that became the papa dog wasn't so bad, but the female that became the mama was a nightmare for a while. That dog developed some twisted need to poop exclusively on my sister's bed. My sister once came home to, I kid you not, 9 piles of poop from that one pug on her bed. I'd see this dog come running into the bedroom after going outside, jump on the bed, give you a look like she doesn't care what you think, and she would drop a juice wherever she felt like, which would usually be on the bed as soon as you weren't watching her. And this dog was punished for it many times, but refused to stop. It got to the point where we had to keep her caged and the bedroom door perpetually closed, but she kept finding a way in if she was let out of the cage. Now just another quick edit here from OP. Avoid this and the next paragraph if you don't feel like reading about this dog. You know what I'll do? I'll put a timestamp on screen right now of where to jump to if you don't want to hear about what's going to happen next. And if you're listening on podcast platforms, just skip ahead. Eventually, it got to the point where I was taking zero BS from this dog. I decided one day she was not going to go back inside until she pooped. And the dog really did not like that, especially since it was cold outside and the ground was wet. I watched as she would sniff around, make a motion like she was going to take a dump, then just whine while looking around and move on. She did this a few times, then looked over at my sister's trailer and suddenly started running towards it all of a sudden with a look of complete glee on her face, like she was thinking, I want to poop there. I stopped the dog and I forced her to come back. She looked at me like I was a killjoy and just sat down to pout and stare at me. I told the dog I had all day, and she finally got bored enough to go back to sniffing around. She tried to make a break for the trailer 2 more times. Finally, after like 45 minutes, she couldn't hold it in anymore and took a dump. But I could tell she had more in her. So I kept waiting around and she finally took another dump because I wasn't taking her back to the trailer. The march back was like a walk of shame for her because she knew she'd lost. And she put up no fuss when I put her back in her cage. I kept up that routine until eventually she finally stopped trying to poop on the bed. Okay, I think we are done with the poop for now. So if you skip forward, you're safe. Eventually, my sister's at the time boyfriend brought home a puppy he got for free. This puppy was adorable, but grew into an absolute monster, bigger than my Akbash dog. He was huge and pooed and peed on the floor all the time, especially right near my middle nephew's bed. Okay, so the poop isn't really done yet. You know what? I think it's just part of this story, isn't it? It's kind of in the title. Anyway, when put on his tether outside, he would bark constantly. On days I had migraines, this dog drove me nuts, and he made it impossible for anyone to sleep at times, especially my father. This dog was so strong that he broke his chain tether numerous times. They couldn't use rope because he'd chew through it. He chewed everything. The fifth wheel trailer my sister was living in on our property at the time, she bought brand new. That dog just destroyed it, even worse than the pugs did. That dog also destroyed plenty of stuff belonging to my nephews. Clothes, shoes, toys, anything it could get in its mouth. I had to fix my middle nephew's shelves with duct tape. What? Your shelves? Goodness me. We told my sister many times that she had to get rid of this dog. We even gave her an ultimatum more than once, but she still refused. She finally sold the dog to someone who had one of the same breed and wanted another one, and treated us like we'd ruined her life by making her get rid of this dog that she could not handle. Soon after, my ex-brother-in-law took his kids away and refused to bring them back. Not long after, my sister was given the boot, and she was out by January. When my sister got an eviction notice from the family property in 2023, she moved in with her only remaining friend and started breeding her pugs again. And just like last time, she kept the cutest one. Then her best friend kicked her out, and my sister got a new boyfriend who was also her drug dealer and moved in with him. Then her abusive boyfriend kicked her out and left her in a broken down RV trailer on the side of the road, and then he left her with a car that barely ran. By then, she'd burned like 98% of the bridges she'd had because she's an entitled narcissist. She spent 2 days living with her boyfriend's sister and let her pugs pee and poop all over the bedroom floor and didn't clean up any of it, so she got kicked out there as well. I had to clean it all up when I came and got her and her stuff, and then I had to spend a day following her numerous places with all her stuff in the back of my truck while she was trying to find someone to take her in. Most of the people she tried to get in touch with wouldn't return her calls or messages. And I was the only one walking her dang dogs. She just sat in her car on her phone the entire time. And then she tried to force me to take her dogs home with me. But I couldn't. Our parents are my landlords. They said no. My sister flipped out on me for it. She claimed our parents were allowing me to bring her stuff home in my truck for the time being, and her dogs were a part of her stuff. But I still said no, and she lost her mind. She spent the night in a car full of junk with 3 pugs. She didn't even have food for the dogs. I had to buy her some because she was broke. The next day, our mum got her a motel room for the night and she was completely ungrateful for it. Then she went right back to her abusive boyfriend the next day. I just dumped her stuff off in his front yard and I left. My sister finally had to surrender the mum and dad pugs to a rescue. But she kept that puppy. I'd previously told her she needed to give away all the dogs as she couldn't care for them if she was homeless. She said she'd think about giving up the 2 parent pugs, but refused to part with the puppy. I told her that trying to raise a puppy on the streets would not be good for the dog, and she ranted that dogs were great for the mental health of homeless people, and that she needed him. My sister was previously in touch with a pug rescue, but stopped talking to them. I looked this rescue up and I gave them a call, and they were worried for the safety of the pugs. So worried that they called me back to ask for or tell me updates on the situation. Eventually they called me and said my sister had surrendered the 2 parent dogs to them and they gave her $100 each for them. I don't know if that was a normal thing to do or if my sister maybe extorted money for the dogs since they were pure breeds and a breeding pair. They didn't clarify. But both dogs were highly adoptable, they told me, and likely found homes fairly quickly, if not even maybe sent to the same home. My sister also had a tabby cat that she couldn't take care of and begged I take him. Not only did I take in the cat, I refused to return him to her later. He loves it here and he was raised here. When I brought him home, he started purring the second I pulled in the driveway, and I mean aggressively purring. He couldn't see where we were because he was in his carrier, but he knew by smell. As soon as I let him out of the carrier, he was running around the yard like, "I'm home." My sister previously took him to live in a drug den with her abusive boyfriend and would take him right back into that sort of life if I'd let her. I recently had him chipped and registered in my name just to keep her from taking him away. She's an animal hoarder. She'll keep dogs and cats and then just won't clean up after them. And if she has the money or the room, she'll get more. Over 20 years ago, she was living in an old manufactured home with 20 cats that she was letting pee and poop all over the place. I had to clean it all up for her many times because she wouldn't do anything. And when called out on it, she'd cry and say the cats were like her babies. I tell you, you don't know nothing about cleaning cat poop till you've had to use a shovel. Oh my god. Those cats were just pooping on top of more poop. It was like shoveling moist clay. At least I clean up after my cats. Recently, my sister showed up wanting her cat back and I kicked her off the property. She threatened to report me, but she hasn't. Probably because we know she's doing meth and crack and doesn't want cops snooping around. When she wasn't looking, I saw the cat run away from her and hide under my house. And normally he's friendly with everybody. Then he started following me and meowing like mad. He did not want to go with her. Okay, there we go. That is the end of that marathon story. I'm not quite sure how to react to that. Whether to feel like this woman is just completely ridiculous or I don't even know if she is entitled. I think she's just like mentally ill. Obviously loves animals, but in like a disgusting way that isn't for like the love of the animal itself. It's for how she feels and what animals can do for her. You know, she doesn't care if her animals are living in like manure. She just likes the way that it makes her feel having lots of animals around and lots of pets that she doesn't care for. Like, obviously, she's got a lot of stuff going on. She does a lot of drugs, which is clear even despite the fact that we were told that she does a lot of drugs. And yeah, clearly she's not right mentally. But, you know, despite all of that being said, you got to think of the animals here and how she's treating them. And the people in the comments below, and this is why OP left that edit at the beginning of this post saying, look, I know I'm getting a lot of hate in the comments. They've been saying, listen, you know that your sister is like this and she's a bad person, but you've sort of enabled this life. You've enabled her, not life, I suppose, but you've enabled her to have all these pets and you haven't actually done anything. Like, you should have called CPS or, you know, the RSPCA in England a lot longer ago. It doesn't matter if your parents or your family are saying not to. Like, you know, you got to think about the animals here, not just your sister. I don't know. I feel a bit bad for OP. Like, you've tried so hard to help her, so you're clearly a nice person. Maybe you should have called CPS earlier, or the RSPCA, whatever you call it, the ASPCA, I think it is in America. So I don't know. What do you think in the comments down below? He should have done more, I think. But I mean, it is his sister, and clearly he wants to help. Tough one, but there we go. You let me know in the comments down below what you think. I'm exhausted after reading that, and I'm sorry for the animals. Ultimately, just disgusting. There we go. That's gonna do it for this one, guys. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, and you want more, right away check out this episode on screen. If you're new to the channel, subscribe, and I will catch you guys on the next one.